Shots fired. Trump just sent Kim Jong-un hell after his latest test caused massive earthquake. Around 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time today, North Korea decided to carry out its sixth and most powerful nuclear test to date in an extraordinary show of defiance against U.S. President Donald Trump. In an official statement, Kim Jong-un, also known as Fat Boy, is saying he ordered, and detonated, a hydrogen bomb that could be mounted on an intercontinental ballistic missile. The test, which the North Korea hailed as being a complete success, was the first to clearly surpass the destructive power of the bombs dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which put an end to World War II. North Korea confirmed the test of a powerful hydrogen bomb that can be loaded onto an intercontinental ballistic missile in a move that is expected to increase pressure on President Donald Trump to defuse the growing nuclear crisis on the Korean peninsula. The announcement was carried on state TV, and they claimed this was their sixth test since 2006. They went on to hail the test as being a complete success, which involved a two-stage thermonuclear weapon with unprecedented strength and power of destruction. If this is indeed true, as it seems to be by the 6.3 earthquake which was felt around the same time as the test happened, then the world is indeed in great danger. The Financial Times reports. Trump opens door to attack on North Korea after nuclear threat. U.S. President slams Pyongyang's hostile and dangerous weapons test amid global outcry. Donald Trump has lashed out after North Korea's latest nuclear weapons test, declaring the nation's actions as hostile and dangerous to the U.S. and leaving open the possibility of a military response against Pyongyang. North Korea on Sunday said it had tested a hydrogen bomb capable of being mounted on a ballistic missile that was a perfect success. The test, estimated to have been about 10 times more powerful than previous detonations, triggered a magnitude 6.3 earthquake. After meeting with the president on Sunday, Jim Mattis, the defense secretary, appeared outside the White House to warn North Korea that any threat to the U.S. or its allies would be met with a massive military response. North Korea's move provoked strong reaction from the Chinese and Russian presidents on Sunday, who were speaking on the sidelines of a BRICS summit in China. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin agreed to appropriately deal with the latest nuclear test, while Mr. Xi went on to tell the summit that the group was committed to upholding global peace and contributing to the international security order. In Europe, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said that North Korea's provocations had reached a new dimension. The move by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is the latest show of defiance to the international community, particularly the U.S., amid rising concerns that Pyongyang is getting closer to being able to hit the U.S. with an intercontinental ballistic missile. Last month, Mr. Trump warned of fire and fury if Pyongyang continued to threaten the U.S. after North Korea test-fired 2 long-range missiles in July. When asked by a reporter on Sunday if the U.S. would attack North Korea, the U.S. president said, "We'll see." Stephen Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, said the U.S. would continue to apply economic pressure by putting together a package of new sanctions that would potentially cut off all global trade with Pyongyang. China has the option of cutting off North Korea's oil supply but has been loath to do so because of fears that it would trigger a refugee crisis. Mr. Trump on Sunday tweeted, "North Korea is a rogue nation which has become a great threat and embarrassment to China, which is trying to help but with little success." North Korea's state news agency KCNA early on Sunday posted pictures of Mr. Kim inspecting what it claimed was a hydrogen bomb and reported that he had watched it being loaded onto an intercontinental ballistic missile. The tremor was stronger than those created by the regime's 5 previous tests. South Korea's Parliamentary Defense Committee estimated that the device had a yield of up to 100 kilotons. South Korea condemned the test and put its nuclear crisis team into operation while Japan and China said they were monitoring radiation levels. President Moon Jae-in called for diplomatic pressure to force North Korea to abandon its nuclear program. The president also called for a review of U.S. and South Korean military planning to counter the nuclear threat, Kyodo reported. But Mr. Trump criticized Seoul's response, tweeting that South Korea's talk of appeasement with North Korea will not work, they only understand one thing. In his brief appearance, Mr. Mattis said the commitments between the U.S. and its allies Japan and North Korea were ironclad. Any threat to the United States or its territories including Guam, or our allies, will be met with a massive military response, a response both effective and overwhelming, he told reporters. The U.S., he added, was not looking to the total annihilation of North Korea even if it had many options to do so. Bong Young-sik, an authority on North Korea at Seoul's Yonsei University, said earlier that the regime now believed the White House's rhetoric was shallow. Kim Jong-un now understands that Washington does not have the ability to crank up its maximum pressure strategy any further, he said. He understands Washington does not realistically have a military option. The only option is for Washington to recognize North Korea as a nuclear state and hope to contain it like with the Soviet Union. It remains unclear whether Pyongyang has indeed mastered the technology enabling it to mount a miniaturized nuclear warhead onto an ICBM. We don't know if this thing is full of styrofoam, Melissa Hannum, a defense expert at the Middlebury Institute for International Studies in California, said on Twitter of the pictures released by North Korea's news agency. Nevertheless, Troy Stangarone, senior director at the Korea Economics Institute, said early indications showed that this test was a significant step forward for North Korea with a much more powerful blast than prior tests. Coupled with the ICBM tests and other technological advances, Americans send George Soros epic message that could put an end to this terror sponsor. Hungarian billionaire George Soros has spent his life amassing power over governments, seeking to turn good countries into socialist garbage dumps. In the U.S., Soros has used his money to buy politicians and sponsor domestic terrorism. However, Americans have had enough and just sent Soros a powerful message that could put an end to this terror sponsor for good. According to the Washington Times, a White House petition calling for Soros to be declared a terrorist has now received enough signatures to garner a reply from the Trump administration. The petition was posted to the We the People section of the WhiteHouse.gov website on August 20. Petitions posted require 100,000 signatures within 30 days to qualify for a response from the president. The George Soros petition has now crossed that threshold with over 110,000 signatures as of today. Interestingly, the petitions section of the White House website was created under the direction of Barack Obama, who wanted to give the appearance of transparency. This feature has been most famously used by Democrats for a petition that calls on President Trump to release his tax returns. Now, American patriots who want our nation to be free from the influence of amoral foreign billionaires are turning Obama's creation against his own movement. The Soros petition does not mince words in addressing the danger that this shady man poses, warning him to stay out of our politics. Whereas George Soros has willfully and on an ongoing basis attempted to destabilize and otherwise commit acts of sedition against the United States and its citizens, has created and funded dozens, and probably hundreds, of discrete organizations whose sole purpose is to apply Alinsky-model terrorist tactics to facilitate the collapse of the systems and constitutional government of the United States, and has developed unhealthy and undue influence over the entire Democrat Party and a large portion of the U.S. federal government. The DOJ should immediately declare George Soros and all of his organizations and staff members to be domestic terrorists, and have all of his personal and organizational wealth and assets seized under civil asset forfeiture law. The petition aims to hit Soros where it would most hurt him, in his wallet. Seizing his wealth and assets would put a major hurdle in front of an individual who continually uses his money and influence to subvert democratically elected governments around the world. It's ironic that the left has been crying non-stop about Russian influence, interference, and meddling in the 2016 election when Soros has been openly meddling in American politics and elections for decades, and the Democrats have praised him for doing so. As Discover the Network's notes, Soros' pet projects include America Votes, a national get-out-the-vote coalition that supports Democratic candidates, and American Family Voices, whose purpose is to dig up dirt on Republicans. Yet, Soros hedges his bets, buying politicians on both sides of the aisle. As Daily Caller reports, George Soros has given well over $100,000 to Republican John McCain's Institute for International Leadership, which has the hazy purpose of advancing human rights, dignity, democracy, and freedom. Soros' biggest crime is directly financing domestic terror groups. The Hungarian billionaire funds paid protesters at organizations like Black Lives Matter and the anti-fascist Refuse Fascism, groups that regularly commit acts of violence against conservatives. President Donald Trump is a thorn in George Soros' side because he is the one person in Washington, D.C., who cannot be bought, and he occupies the highest office in the country. If Trump takes action on this petition, he can deal a crushing